If I've learned anything from my stint on the road as a professional accordion player, is that I should probably stick to guitar. So today we're going to talk about some very simple things that you could do to take very simple chords and play them in a little more unique way. We're going to do something extremely basic. The most basic chord progression in all of music is a 1-4-5, right? Had a hard time choosing the numbers. I'm so anti 1-4-5 that I can't even put my fingers in the 1-4-5 pattern without the contrarian in me just fighting against all hope. 1-4-5, basically what that means is like in the major scale, let's say C major, right? C is the 1 chord. C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C, those are the notes. Each one of those notes can become chords. C, D, E, F, and G. So C, F, and G are the major chords in the key of C, right? C, F, C. Now, I always used to think this was kind of boring. Until I hit that circuit as an accordion player, did I learn that really dressing up a 1-4-5 is something that makes a lot of sense and is something that people just love the sound of, right? Quit being precious. You don't have to make everything sad and dark and moody like I generally do. You can have a little joy. Let a little joy into your life, right? Just like the sponsor of today's video, DistroKid, has let the joy of music into so many people's minds and hearts and souls. There's an affiliate link in the description. We'll talk more about that later. But let's talk about the 1, the 4, and the 5. But let's do it in a way that's not going to kill your soul on a guitar, all right? There's a really, really easy way to kind of track this C major chord and then kind of get up into maybe a little more interesting ways to play, all right? Now, what I first want to do is I want to bridge the gap between the first chord in the key, the 4 chord, and the 5 chord. Now, we're going to do it as just the same shape, right? You can get away with this. This is the cool thing about the key of C. This does not work on an accordion. For the people out there who are like, well, clearly this guy's a professional accordion player, all these tips are going to translate perfectly well to the accordion. That's not true, actually, right? But if we take the same C major shape, and I'm going to play a C/G chord, which means I'm going to get the 3rd fret on the low E string. So the bass note is actually a G, and then so it's 3, 3, 2, open, 1, open. The cool thing about the key of C major is the open G string and open E string ringing out are just going to make these chords sound a little more interesting, right? So technically, these are fancier than just a 1-4-5. These have different names if you want to get into it, but the interval, the space between the 1 chord and the 4 chord, think of it as the 3rd fret to the 8th fret. Okay, so 5 frets higher. In fact, if we were to play the major scale along one string, we'd have whole, half. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4. 3 to 8 is the distance between the 1 chord and the 4 chord. And then a whole step to there is the 5 chord, right? So 1, 4, 5, 1. Basically, an interesting way to play C, F, G, C, F, G. Okay, now, in some cases that might be a little too spicy. Now, the thing about acoustic guitar is, I think primarily it's like the perfect instrument to accompany a singer or maybe a lead instrument or something like that, right? Now, with great power comes great responsibility, which is a famous quote by an accordion player of great renown. Sorry. I'm really sorry, guys. But what that means is just because you can play a chord with 5 different notes in it doesn't mean you always should, right? So what I want to do is I want to take this idea, right? 1, 4, 5, or maybe 1, 5, 4. I want to take the space traveled as the main thing you take away from this lesson. How you dress the chord up once you get there is up to you. But, you know, C, F, G on that same spot is a great way to kind of start playing songs and getting into it early. But there's some more interesting ways that we can go to these chords, which we're going to talk about now, all right? So instead of going from here to this F major, I want you to just think of the 8th fret on the A string as being your F note. This is going to be our root note, okay? Now, the thing that I want to do is I want to turn this into this chord right here, or even this chord right here. Okay, this is an F major 7. Basically, without the low E string, we have 8 on the A string, 7 on the D string, 9 on the G string. So we have an F, we have its major 3rd, which is an A, and then we have the major 7 of an F, which is an E. So technically, we are implying the 5th. Usually there's a C note in an F major chord or F major 7 chord. Cool thing about guitar is we don't really necessarily need that C in there to get what's kind of like an F major 7 chord, mostly an F major 7 chord. The important parts, the root note, the 3rd, which determines its class, if it's major or minor, and the 7th note, to make it pretty, that major 7 chord is all there. Now we can get the root note, or the 5th, I mean, by the bass note by just grabbing the 8th fret on the E string. So there's our C. So there's the 5th, the 1st, the 3rd, and the 7th, right? That's how we would spell that chord out. I think it's a really very pretty way to play the 4 chord in the key of C, right? So C, right there. Okay, now again, what I'll do sometimes is I'll actually just use my middle finger to track, especially, or ring finger, either way. You can do it like that. The nice thing about keeping the ring finger there is the relationship between the root note and the major 3rd is kind of just paired up. So you just drop the pinky. Maybe you can kind of go thumb over if you're crazy. Right? But this is a chord voicing that I do not see people use enough. I love this major 7 chord voicing. Start using it now. Right? But always think of it 5 frets higher than the root note. Another way you could do this is play a closed voice of the C major. We're going to turn everything into a major 7 chord. Why not? We can keep that same voice here. We can go like this. We can maybe even open the higher strings up. 1 chord to the 4 chord. Or maybe a different variation of the 1 chord to the 4 chord. Now, I think one thing that is overlooked on acoustic guitar is a lot of times less is more. I'm just really throwing out the saying. This is great power, great responsibility. Whatever accordion stupid thing I said earlier. Less is more, guys. Come on. You don't have to have a full bar chord every time. Really, sometimes the prettiest thing to do is really just to kind of simplify and just do that, right? All about simplification. So, maybe even just this C major 7, 3, 2, 4 on the A, D, G string. 5 frets higher. Move it together. Simplify, just like DistroKid simplifies how easy it is to get your music online. Thank you to the sponsor of today's video, DistroKid. If you haven't used DistroKid and you want to get your music online, it is the only option. It's so good. It's probably dollar for dollar the best service on the internet. You can put unlimited amounts of songs, spoken word stuff, whatever you want up online for one low fee per year. You even get a discount if you use my affiliate link in the description, and then it'll put your music on Spotify, Apple Music, Amazon, Tidal, like all the services that you don't even know exist. This is one of those things that it's like they really over deliver, because it has put my music on services I did not know exist. And I've actually gotten messages from people like, hey, I discovered your music on insert streaming service I did not know existed. And that's all because of DistroKid, because I never would have thought to even put it up there, but they make it really easy. All you need is a piece of music or something and a little piece of artwork, right? And then they'll take care of the rest. They even have like a mobile feature now that you can do it from your phone. So again, if you have any ambitions of getting music online, getting heard by the people, what you need to do, sign up for DistroKid, use it in the link in the description. Let's do the 5 chord. Ooh, I love this one right here. This is a G7 chord, okay? I've got the ring finger on the G on the A string, 10th fret. Still a major 3rd, it's a major class chord, and then my pinky is going to round out the flat 7. So basically it's the same shape as before with a flat 7, and that's what's special about the 5 chord in any key. It becomes a dominant 7 chord if you want to add an extra note to it. Right? We do the same thing where if you want to maybe add the thickness, if you want to get that 5th in there, now we've got the 5th of G. What is it? G, A, B, C, D, right? The 10th fret of the E is a D string, so 10E is a D, 10A is a G note. We have the 9th fret on the D string, which is the major 3rd of G, which is a B, and then we have the flat 7, which is an F, okay? So, there's that chord right there. 10, 10, 9, 10. You could also get the B in there too because, again, we determined that B is already in there. You can get the highest string if you're nasty, if you want to get that 6 and 7 stuff in there. But then the 4 chord to the 1 chord. 1, 4, 5. 1, 4, 5. Or 1, 4, 5. See, if you play 1, 4, 5 with open chords, it sounds like you're playing La Bamba, right? Now, if you play with these classy chords, it's the La Bamba free zone, which is where I live my life, guys. No shade on La Bamba. I just prefer, it's a more peaceful place than the La Bamba free zone. So you can use this because you can move this around. With closed voicings, you can always move them around, right? So we'll do an example of that, but real quick. So we've got C major open to the 4, 5. We've got C major 7 closed to the 4, 5 flat and 7 on that 5th fret. And that's what makes it kind of interesting. Now let's say we want to do it in, let's just go up a half step, right? C sharp, D flat. We can't really do this because the open strings aren't coming with us. So this would be a great example of maybe closing that voicing down and then using, I like using my pinky to just kind of drape over the B and the E string so I can't hear it. Basically what I'm doing is, now I've got, remember, C major 7 is right there, C sharp, major 7 is right here, 4, 3, 5 on the A, D, G string, and now my pinky is doing its best to mute the highest strings, right? And then, how do I find out where the 4th is? From here, 5 frets higher. So 4 plus 5 is 9. Even bass players can do that math. And then we go up step higher from there. So now I've got 1, 4, 5. And that distance is something that just gets really ingrained in your muscle memory. And really, so it's really worth kind of spending some time in understanding the intervals and how they kind of connect in between stuff, right? Now the distance between the 1 and the 4 is actually, like I said, 5 frets, but we're also skipping over 2 notes. So why don't we just do something interesting real quick, just to add those 2 notes and have them represented by chords, all right? So let's go back to the key C. We got 1 to 4, right? C, we're skipping over the D and the E to get to the F, right? So think of just 3, 5, 7, 8. Those are gonna be like our root notes where we're gonna anchor these chord voicings off of. 1, 2, 3, 4, okay? So what I'm gonna do here, now I'm gonna use the same shape, right? Here's my major 7 shape, here's the next 2 shapes. It doesn't really look like I'm moving my hand that much. All I'm doing is now I'm dropping my ring finger to 5A, there's where that D note is. Its minor third is down a string back 2 frets, and then its dominant 7, flat 7, just like we did with the G chord, right? Remember for that G one we went, it's a root note, a minor third, and a minor 7. For a minor chord we have a root note, or G is root note, major third, minor 7. A minor chord is a root note, minor third, minor 7, right? So I can do that with the D and the E. So 5, 3, 5, 7, 5, 7, and then that gets me to the 4 chord, all right? So, kind of simple to do because you can just kind of go 1, 2, 3, 4. And the beautiful thing about all of these chord voicings is we're implying the 5th, but if you do want to add the 5th, it's always just chilling right below the root note. So again, for that C chord, we can grab the G there. And then if we start to think about it in this term, it's like, all right, well maybe I can kind of like keep these, my middle finger, my ring finger locked to kind of make essentially a power chord to put underneath that minor chord, right? So now it's 5, 5, 3, 5. And if I want to get those open strings, they're in the key. Interesting sound. maybe it'll sound better on the A or the E. Which of course it would sound better on the E because E and B are notes in the E minor chord, right? I mean, this is a real interesting chord voicing here for E minor. And then that leads us right to, there's that F, and then you want to get G. And then that leads us all the way up to A minor, which now we can kind of do as another shape, 12, 12, 10, 12. And then if you want to get the open strings on top, that's fine, you don't need them. But because we just did that with slight variations, major, minor, minor, major again, major is a dominant 7 chord, minor. That's really the main 6 chords in this key, and we've all done it using a somewhat similar shape that we can maybe experiment with more. So the nice thing about that is you can play pretty much any chord progression with the numbers 1 through 6. And then you can use those chords to make any song or learn any song, which you should make some music and then add to the incredible library via DistroKid because it's so inexpensive, like you might as well. What do you have to lose except for your legacy? I love it. So 1, 5, 4, 3, 2, 4, 3, 2, 1. And that doesn't seem so hard. Like, again, it's easier said than done, getting your hand in maybe new shapes that you haven't done in different places on the neck. But I do think that it's really worth it because once you kind of have just an access point to get into the higher register of the guitar, it becomes so much less daunting to maybe start playing up here, doing solo things, maybe even just like kind of like arpeggios through the neck. I really think that learning chord voicings through movable shapes is the best way to open up all of music theory and just kind of playing throughout the entire neck. So I'm a big fan of using that. Big fan of this Martin D35, which, oh my gosh, I've missed this guitar so much. I've been out west and I've not been able to play this as much, but yeah, huge fan. Thank you once again to DistroKid for sponsoring the video. If you guys have any questions, hit me up in the comment section or the website, and I'll talk to y'all soon. Thanks.